The timeline of Jaden Ivey's failed extension and his sudden surgery announcement doesn't just look suspicious, it looks like a premeditated front office strategy. The common belief is that Jaden Ivey, the number 5 pick, simply failed to show the Pistons front office enough to earn a rookie extension before the October 21st deadline. The narrative is that his inconsistent play and questionable fit next to Cade Cunningham made a big money deal too risky. But the reality is far darker. The Pistons organization appears to have used sensitive medical information as leverage against their own player, lowballed him in negotiations, and then strategically leaked both the on thin ice narrative and the surgery announcement after talks failed to win the public relations war and suppress his future value. This wasn't a negotiation that fell apart. This was a calculated move to break a player's leverage. Today we are answering 3 questions. First, what is the exact timeline of Ivey's failed contract talks, the insider leaks, and this sudden surgery? Second, how could the Pistons legally and ethically use private medical information as a bargaining chip against their own lottery pick? And third, why would Detroit risk shattering their relationship with a young star and his agent? The answers are found in the receipts. We have mapped the timeline down to the hour, we've examined the collective bargaining agreement's rules on medical data, and we've analyzed the Pistons' future cap sheet to expose the real billion-dollar motive. Let's start with the first knife twist, the public relations campaign. Why did that insiders claim Jaden Ivey is on thin ice report surface? The timing is the entire story. This wasn't a random update. It was step 2 of a meticulously planned sequence. Our timeline, based on public reports, shows that the final formal extension offer from the Pistons to Ivey's agent, Austin Brown at CCA, was reportedly tabled on October 15th. Ivey's camp, feeling the offer was disrespectful, officially rejected it on October 20th, just before the deadline. For 24 hours, there was silence. Then, on October 22nd, exactly 1 day after the deadline passed, the first report from a major insider dropped, quoting an anonymous team source that Ivey's future in Detroit was on thin ice due to concerns over his long-term fit and professionalism. This is a classic media plant. Think about the motive. The Pistons knew the public would ask why they failed to lock up a top 5 kick. The on thin ice leak provided the answer before the team had to officially comment. It preemptively framed the narrative. It wasn't the Pistons failed to sign their guy. It became Ivey's attitude and poor play prevented a deal. This report was the team's first public justification, painting Ivey as the problem. It allowed them to control the story, shifting the blame from the front office's failure to negotiate in good faith to the player's supposed failure to earn a deal. This report was the setup, the justification for what the front office already knew was coming. The leak was purely a defensive public relations move to poison the well against Ivey before the real news dropped, and it set the stage perfectly for the most shocking part of the plan. This brings us to the core of the betrayal, the surgery itself. What was this procedure and why was it announced on October 23rd, less than 48 hours after the extension deadline passed? The team press release was vague, stating Ivey underwent a successful procedure to relieve discomfort in his left wrist, and that a timeline for his return will be updated as appropriate. This wasn't an acute injury, like a break from a fall. Sources inside the organization alleged this was a lingering ligament issue, a scapholunate ligament tear that Ivey had been managing since this past summer league in July. The team's medical staff knew about it, the front office knew about it, and Jaden Ivey knew about it, battling through the discomfort in training camp to try and prove his worth. This is the most critical piece of evidence. The Pistons organization, led by general manager Trajan Langdon, was negotiating a 9-figure contract extension with the player possessing private medical data showing he needed surgery. According to sources close to the negotiations, the team used this injury as leverage. They allegedly pointed to his declining shooting percentages and increased turnover rate during the preseason, symptoms directly related to a non-dominant wrist injury, as proof that his play didn't warrant a max or near max deal. They were blaming him for symptoms of an injury they knew about. Ivey was put in an impossible position, either accept a lowball offer or be forced to reveal the injury himself, cratering his value. He refused the deal. And so, the moment the deadline passed, the Pistons took the decision out of his hands.
They announced the surgery, immediately validating their decision not to extend him. It makes them look smart and prudent. See, we knew he was damaged goods. That's why we didn't pay him. This timing ensures Ivey enters the next season coming off surgery with his platform year ruined, absolutely destroying his value heading into restricted free agency next summer. So what did that insulting offer actually look like? Let's look at the money. This wasn't just a slight disagreement on the final number. This was a deliberate lowball. Ivey, as the number 5 pick, was extension eligible for a deal that could have reached a 5-year, $200 million maximum. More realistically, players in his draft class with similar, albeit inconsistent production like Benedict Mathurin or Shaden Sharp were looking at deals in the 4-year, $100 million range. That's the baseline. According to league sources, the Pistons' one and only formal offer to Ivey was 4 years and $64 million. $16 million per year. That's not a serious negotiation. That is a take it or leave it ultimatum. That $64 million is a poisoned pill. It's just high enough that if Ivey accepted, the team gets a potential star locked in at a massive discount. But it's just low enough that they knew his agent would have to reject it. Why would they do this? Because they were negotiating with an ace of their sleeve, the wrist injury. The Pistons front office was essentially betting that Ivey wouldn't want to play his 4th year, injured on an expiring contract. They tried to scare him into taking a bad deal. When he called their bluff and rejected it, the Pistons moved to phase 2, leak the on thin ice story, then announce the surgery. By offering only $64 million, they created a can't-lose scenario for themselves. Either he signs a steal of a contract, or they get to destroy his leverage, paint him as the problem, and force him into a prove-it year after surgery. It's a ruthless but effective asset management strategy. But is it even legal? How can a team use private medical information against their own player? This is where we enter the dark gray area of the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. We reviewed Article 22 of the CBA, which covers player health and safety. The rules are extremely strict about how teams share medical information with other teams. During a trade, a team must disclose all relevant medical information in good faith. But the rules are far less clear about how a team uses that information in contract negotiations with its own player. There is no specific clause that says you cannot use your own doctor's diagnosis as leverage to lowball a player. It's supposed to be covered by the general standard of good faith bargaining. We spoke to a prominent player agent who wished to remain anonymous to protect his clients. His take was chilling. He said, quote, "This is the ultimate breach of trust. The team doctor is supposed to be there to protect the player's health. In this case, the Pistons front office weaponized their own medical staff's diagnosis against the player. They used a report meant to get him healthy as a tool to make him cheaper." End quote. While this may not be illegal in a way a court could prosecute, it is a profound violation of the unwritten rules of the league. It's an act of bad faith that will be remembered by every agent. The Pistons front office essentially told Jaden Ivey, "We know you're hurt and we're going to pay you less because of it. And if you don't take our offer, we will make that injury public the second we are allowed to." This wasn't a partnership. It was a hostage negotiation. This finally brings us to the big question: why? Why would the Pistons do this to a 22-year-old player they invested a top 5 pick in? Why burn that bridge so completely? The answer is on the depth chart and the future salary cap table. This move isn't just about Jaden Ivey. It's about clearing the path for Cade Cunningham and the next guy. The Pistons have fully committed to Cade as their franchise cornerstone. They also used another high lottery pick in this past draft on a guard. Let's call him Reed Shepherd. The front office has decided that Ivey is the odd man out, but they can't just let him walk for nothing, and they can't trade him when his value is ambiguous. This entire sequence was a cold-blooded business decision to suppress Jaden Ivey's market value. By forcing him to play out his 4th year, coming off a wrist surgery, his stats will likely be depressed. His efficiency will be questioned. When he becomes a restricted free agent next summer, other teams will be hesitant to offer him a massive contract. This gives the Pistons all the power. They can either let another team overpay and choose not to match, or more likely, they can sign Ivey to a much cheaper, short-term prove-it deal, a deal potentially worth even less than the $64 million they just offered. They are intentionally tanking their own assets' value to maintain long-term financial flexibility. They are burning Ivy to save future cap space, ensuring that when it's time to give Cade Cunningham the supermax and pay their new lottery pick, Ivy's contract won't be in the way. It's a brutal, cynical, and ruthlessly effective long-term financial play. So let's summarize. The public believes Jaden Ivey fumbled his bag, that his poor play cost him an extension. But the receipts show a different story. We've seen how the Pistons allegedly used a planted on thin ice leak on October 22nd to frame the narrative. We've seen how they conveniently announced a surgery on October 23rd for an injury they allegedly knew about since July, a move that weaponized Ivy's own health against him. And we've seen how the $64 million offer was never a real negotiation, but an ultimatum backed by the threat of publicizing his injury.
This wasn't a failed negotiation. It was a cold, calculated asset suppression plan designed to shatter Ivy's leverage, save the team money, and clear the decks for their preferred stars. My final takeaway is this. This incident sends a terrifying message to every player agent in the league. The Pistons front office has just declared that they are willing to use your client's private medical data as a weapon in negotiations. It proves that for some teams, your health isn't a priority, it's just another point of leverage. To see the other side of this, how agents and players fight back using their own leverage, from trade demands to media leaks, you need to understand the full playbook. We break down all those tactics in our essential series, Locker Room Confidential. Click the playlist on your screen now.